Short-term rentals were booming as much as everything else in the Hudson Valley and Catskills and all across the country over the past couple of years. And are things changing? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe in some ways, good, bad. Let's talk about it. So my name is Megan Brenwhite. I am the CEO and founder and licensed real estate associate broker of the Upstate Curious team of Keller Williams Realty Hudson Valley North. And we are based in, the team is a pretty big team. We cover roughly 8 counties, everywhere you would count as sort of a second home area in upstate, either, west or east of the Hudson River. And I am at the moment at my home in Kerhonkson. So I'm based in Ulster County, and I have been doing Airbnb myself almost since it started. We rented our place out in Brooklyn so that we could come upstate and have people pay to watch our cat for us while we would go on vacations up here, which was very clearly early days of Airbnb, where now people would get upset if there's like a hair on the counter. I literally had people pay me to watch my cat. And most of the reviews were about Stinky and how adorable he was and how lovely he was. So as I had a business doing marketing for international universities, and I would travel a ton internationally. I almost always used Airbnbs as much as I could because I loved it to feel like a local. I loved the ability to cook. I loved the sense that I was kind of like just trial living in Amsterdam or St. Petersburg or Sao Paulo. And sometimes I would stay with people from the country. Sometimes I would stay on my own. I was even part of one of the focus groups for Airbnb when they were having their new logo. And I told them that I thought it looked very awkward and weird, and clearly they're doing great. So they didn't need my advice. And now here I am in 2022, the end of the year, looking ahead at 2023 with a very weird real estate market kind of happening. And a lot of folks that we work with have either homes that they have bought and are Airbnb-ing some of the time, or thinking about buying homes that they want to do short-term rentals with, or as you can see from the chat here, are in various stages of this process. So I wanted to also say that a lot of folks from the team are here today, so that is great. We have, I don't know if you guys want to raise your hand real quick, Scott Frost, who, I'm not going to introduce like everybody. Scott does a lot of like property management and marketing and event stuff with us. Hillary and Scott's in Ulster County and Ellenville. Hillary is technically in Schoharie County and has a rental in Delaware County. That is correct. And she is a buyer's agent on our team. We have Leanna Click, who's going to be joining us later, who has renovated and or is renovating 3 different short-term rentals that she kind of pops between with her partner, Amy, and is going to be talking about that experience. And I see a number of other folks from our team here who can talk about, who can hop in, who are either buyer's agents or listing agents. And I will say that our team, we did over 200 transactions last year. We'll do over 200 transactions this year. So we have a pretty big set of data to pull from in terms of who we're talking to. And we also have the Upstate Curious app, which if you don't know it, I always think of it as the less angry next door, where you can talk about things, ask questions, meet friends, sell stuff, whatever, advertise your business. And that has over 6,000 members now also. So we really try as a team to stay on top of not just what are the new regulations, but what are the trends, what are the rumors, what are we hearing, all the kind of qualitative stuff in addition to quantitative things that might be national or local. So I'll also say that we have Sarah Haviland here today, who is from Go Summer, or just Summer, actually, a new partner company of ours that I'll let her explain when we get to her part, but she is the director of experience. And I think that one of the things that we're going to talk about is how you really kind of have to have great experiences for guests at this point to be competitive in this current market. And I feel like my my Instagram post sort of freaked a lot of people out, big challenges for short-term rentals. And I wasn't trying to be overly dramatic, but I also don't want to understate the challenges that a lot of people are facing who own short-term rentals right now. And I think that that's real. And it doesn't mean that everything is all doom and gloom. It doesn't mean that these are bad financial investments. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to change. It just means that I started hearing from a lot of folks and seeing in our own, we have 2 properties that we rent out, that just November and December kind of felt like they were falling off a cliff in a way they really hadn't. Certainly in the past couple of years, but it felt like, to me, even prior to that. So for a lot of the people who bought homes in the past couple years at these higher prices that we all know and love, and now with the higher interest rates layered on top of that, I think that going into this first winter, it might be a little bit nerve-wracking. So I do have some good news on that front. And that is the first big challenge that I wanted to kind of discuss, which is just generally occupancy rates. Like, what is something actually going on here? And when you look at like the logic of this stuff, it feels like there should be it feels like the occupancy rates just logically should be a lot lower, because we had so many people buy homes upstate in this area. And again, almost all these trends are completely national. So we are similar to other areas where there are a lot of second homes. And, some areas are more, in some ways we're like a ski resort area, and other ways we're just like rural areas that are outside of major metropolitan places. So those are the trends that I'm particularly sort of looking at when I look at things. But if you look at that, we had tons and tons of people buy homes over the past 2 years. It was like frantic, as anybody who's been in real estate knows. The number of transactions this year, 2022, is looking to be down about 22% from the year before that. So, I think we were at around 6 million homes that were bought, or 6 million transactions or so nationally in 2021, I believe. And it looks like it'll be in 2023 closer to like 4.3, 4.5. So this is a huge decrease in the number of actual transactions. While all of that was happening, we had COVID, right? And so like a ton of people that we knew, clients that we knew who had bought homes as weekend homes, came up here, and they stayed here for a year. They ended up moving here because they ended up being able to work remotely, or they ended up spending much more time up here than they had previously. During that time period, all of those Airbnbs were no longer available, right? Because people were home in them. So if they had used them as weekend homes and had rented them out occasionally, that was no longer available because someone was in it. They were there full time. They had set up their home office. They weren't going to like rent it out. And during COVID, you weren't just trying to rent out, for a fun weekend anyways. So during really 2020 and 2021, there were just kind of ridiculous occupancy rates all over the place. And this is the thing. And I posted today on Instagram a new report that just came out, thankfully, from AirDNA about their 2023 projections. And AirDNA, if you guys don't know about that, is a great website that has tons of research and information about specific zip codes and markets. It's not always, I don't know, I don't find it always super helpful in our areas because we just don't have as much data as you would in like a major area. So they're comparing it with fewer. It's the same reason I find comps really hard actually here for selling homes, because if you're looking at 100 homes and one of them is looking at a waterfall and one of them is on a highway, those are so different. It's not like comparing, condo square footage to condo square footage. But AirDNA has some definitely useful information. Their report came out about national trends this year. And what they said was that basically, in 2019 and 2020, the occupancy rates were, in the 80s. And now they are going to be 2022, the average occupancy is 58.2%. And that is actually only down 2.5% year on year. So occupancy rate is how many of the days that were available, how many were rented. For 2023, they're projecting that the occupancy rate will go down slighter, just to 57.4%. So that's like, I mean, that's not bad, but that's going to feel bad to anybody who has been experiencing the 80 or 90% occupancy rates of the past 2 years. You know, just like anybody who was, and there's good or bad things about this, anybody who was a buyer and could buy in the past couple of years with a 2.75% interest rate, but then lost 10 consecutive houses to multiple offers that went wildly over ask. There's good and bad stuff to all of these things. But the gist is, interestingly, nationally at least, in 2022, the supply of Airbnbs went up by 21% and the demand increased by 21%. So it like kind of is even, which I feel like Airbnb had a little bit of different data on that, but the thing that is interesting, I think, and the big sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say it's like bright spot and like a dark story, but like the positive thing here is that even now occupancy is up 4% from 2019. And everybody is projecting tourism to grow as a whole and short-term rental demand to grow as a whole. So this is, even with a potential recession, this is likely to grow. It's just going to grow more slowly. So 2023, AirDNA is looking at demand going up by 5.5% and supply going up by 9%. So now we're going to have, you know, that would then lead to, I mean, they have still the occupancy rate only going down less than a percentage point. So I guess that means there are more people actually, you know, I guess there's more people coming, or that is one statistic I'll have to look into. So I think that's interesting. You know, what we feel as people, I think this is true. So I thought this was a really interesting fact in this report, is 54% of active short-term rental listings in fall of 2022, 54% of them, so just over half of them, had been added to Airbnb since 2020. So that is a big, you know, number when it's compounded and year on year, very big growth. So it's like, if you feel like there are more Airbnbs around, like there really are. So I think that is something that is, is just a fact. At the same time, just to put it in some local context, the county comptroller estimated late summer of this year, 2022, that Ulster County, which is the county, I mean, I haven't seen this number for other counties, it might exist. They estimated that 3.5% of housing units in Ulster County are currently being used as short-term rentals in some capacity. So that was a lot, honestly, that was a lot smaller than I sort of thought it would be, based on, you know, there's definitely a lot of talk about how this impacts affordable housing. Again, this is nationally and locally. But in our market, and I think this is just really important to note, that there have always been a huge number of second homes and second homeowners here. And so what we see with a lot of our clients is that it is actually pretty rare for us that someone is buying a home from a full-time resident and then turning it into a short-term rental. What we see way more often is they're buying another weekend home and then using it as a weekend home for themselves and renting it out part-time. That is like really the case. That is a lot more frequent. And there are people, there are people who were born here, who are from here, who bought second homes and have owned second homes to rent them to this, to tourists for time immemorial. So I think this is not, I like to stay out of a kind of a city folk local, divide here. I think it's really important to recognize that there is absolutely a crisis for working people for housing all around the country, and for sure here also. And that I think we all can be part of the solution for this and need to be talking about it. So I think that I have heard from people, though, what I've heard from people anecdotally that they feel like their Airbnbs have fewer people, have fewer bookings right now. So I think the real thing that's going to be interesting to see is if that occupancy goes up in spring and summer. Like if this is just normal seasonality that just puts us right back to like a little bit better than 2019, or if it's something different, essentially. And one of the other things that is kind of interesting is competition. So competition has not just from other Airbnbs, but competition for other accommodation has and even other locations has really increased in the past year or so. So you now have, in the past 3 years, you have, or even 5 years, let's say, there are so many new hotels. You have Innis, Wildflowers, Starlight, Kinsley, Woodhouse Lodge, Auto Camp, Piale. Just all of these places where there were no hotels before, there are now other options for people to stay in. And what we hear, again, hearing anecdotally and reading in some of the national press is that some people are kind of like sick of Airbnbs, feeling that it's kind of hard to check in. The hosts give them like a weird list of requirements, like, oh, you have to scrub the bathroom floor and strip the sheets and, vacuum my roof before you leave, which I have not experienced, but apparently some people do that. And so they kind of like are starting to prefer staying in just a nice hotel. So that is something to think about. Competition in terms of other locations is an interesting one, because for sure, when people couldn't travel for COVID, when it was hard to fly or terrible to fly, people went on trips where they could go in their car and just like plunk down in a house and hang out. And now people are traveling again to visit family in different places, to go to international destinations. So I think that one's going to be an interesting one, because I think that while that is happening, also this area is becoming more and more and more and more attractive to tourists. And some of that is actually because of a lot of the new hotels that are opening that often have restaurants that are, have other amenities like a spa or whatever it is, just bring different people to the area. So I think that we're going to, I would think that the Hudson Valley and Catskills region would continue to grow in popularity in terms of overall tourist numbers. I find it hard to believe that wouldn't be the case. And also the kind of people who can do work from home and have sort of extended stays. I think those people do like Airbnbs for sure, because they can, they can have, a lot of them have dedicated workspaces, et cetera. So I guess, I'm going to mention a couple other things, and I'm going to jump in and bring our guests on. Basically, the other things that I just wanted to mention is that one of the challenges that Airbnb hosts face now is the sort of decreasing premium, which is it's harder to make money. That's like the easy way to put it, basically, because if you're buying a house now that costs $800,000, that would have cost $500,000 2 years ago. And 500,000, it would have been at, let's say 3.5% interest rate. And now it's at a 6.5% interest rate. You are going like that, the difference between what you're going to earn, like if, you can't just charge more for your daily rate. There is a limit to what the market will bear. So that means that the profits are a lot less. So that is something that I do think that I don't see how that's going away. So it just means that the people who bought things earlier on or at lower prices are, have sort of a head start, I would say, or like just a natural advantage. And this is the primary reason why I think that the I mean, that the supply number of Airbnbs is going to go down. It's a couple of reasons, but I actually think that the supply number is going to go down because it just is harder to make a really significant profit on them. And it is a pain in the tuchus, as we say in Yiddish, to own and manage these a lot of the time. So I think, I mean, we are already starting to see people on the listing side come to us and say, I'm ready to sell this because whatever, I haven't reached the income expectations I had. I don't like being an Airbnb host, whatever it is. Or the last topic here, which is regulations. If you bought a home in an area that now doesn't, and with the intention to do short-term rentals, and laws change, so you could not do that. You can't get a permit yourself, or the town's not allowing permits anymore. You are in a challenging situation. And that is just like factually true. You can't change it. You can't fight it. I mean, you could fight it. You could absolutely like try, and there are certainly like short-term rental owner groups all over the area that are trying to fight different laws being put into place. But there are a lot of laws being put into place, and they are being encouraged at the countywide level often. And a lot of it has to do with, well, one of the things that they kind of going back and forth on is one of the things that had been recommended by Ulster County, at least, and we started to see in some of the laws, was having different rules for owner-occupied short-term rentals and non-owner occupied short-term rentals, which makes sense. If you have people who are struggling with the cost of fuel going up, all of the costs going up with inflation, it's great to be able to rent out a granny flat, or, you know, a room, or I don't know, maybe a space above your garage or something. That's an amazing opportunity for people who are here full-time also to be able to earn some income and capitalize on this opportunity. But Rhinebeck was the first town that was like, I don't think we can do this, based on some decisions made by a federal court in Louisiana, Tennessee, can't remember, somewhere. And Kingston recently also changed their proposed zoning legislation to not differentiate between owner-occupied and non-owner occupied, because it seemed to be something that's not going to ultimately stand up in federal courts. What we are seeing are things like the numbers of days being restricted. So maybe you could only rent 180 days. We're definitely seeing numbers of permits being, that are granted being restricted. The town of Olive Bridge, for example, or Olive, is, they're going to announce the number sometime soon. Let me look at our notes and see if they did that yet. They're going to have a cap on it. And the town has said that the cap could be 0. So it doesn't, saying that it's going to be capped doesn't mean, oh, it's only going to be 200. They're saying it could actually be 0. That's what we have heard when we've spoken to them. So there are safety requirements, and none of this, I just want to say, for the sake of the record, like, I don't have a problem with regulating Airbnbs. I really don't. I think that there's a lot of things that I think that a lot of the problem on the dialogue about this stuff is that it's really black and white, and very, kind of paints everything with the same brush. And yeah, it just is. I think that there are differences in the reasons people Airbnb things. I think there are differences in the types of homes, or differences in how often they do it, all kinds of things. I see Stephen Rodriguez wrote, aren't the STR permits a large source of income for towns, municipalities? Absolutely not. It's a major pain in the butt for most of them. So I know for the town of Rochester, where I am in Kerhonkson, to apply for a grandfathered permit was, I don't know, Scott, what was it? You're probably muted, like $75, $100 or something. It was not a ton of money, and it is a ton of time for them. They have to review the applications. They have to come out. They have to look at it. They have to give us their recommendations. They have to come out again. Like, believe me, I don't think any inspectors are like trying to do this. And some towns are also starting to hire companies to enforce this. So they'll like go on Airbnb and try and match the photos with the blah blah blahs, blah, blah, blah. So that's another cost for the town. So, someone lives in, oh gosh. Yeah. We lived in Olive and use it mostly for themselves, didn't get a permit in time. The town said they sent postcards, we didn't get one. What's the best way to petition your town to lift or remove caps on STRs? I don't know. I mean, no one has been able to do it successfully, honestly, yet. I I really agree. What Hillary just wrote: get to know your town council and go to town meetings, get involved. I think that is the primary piece of advice, because it'll also help you understand the wider context of why the town is talking about this and who's talking about it. It turned out in our town, one of the reasons people were talking really wanted to regulate, the original reason people started to regulate it was because someone on the town board was really afraid of fires in Airbnbs. It was like such a specific thing. And so then that got layered on with, some of county-wide recommendations, and like, here we are. I will say, yeah, somebody just wrote my town in NJ, New Jersey, charges $400 for a permit. It brings money in restaurant shops and local businesses. You would think that would be you would think that would be a great argument, and one that would also, the argument that it provides employment to cleaners, to contractors, to landscapers, to it's like there's a whole economy around this, right? But when towns are faced with decreasing housing and increasing costs, some of them don't want that stuff. That just reads as gentrification. It's not, they're not like, yay, more restaurants. They're actually like, more restaurants are going to bring more people from the city and prices are just going to go up more. So it's tricky, it just is, it's tricky. What I would also say is that there are, like I said, there are short-term rental groups for a lot of towns, short-term rental owner groups with a lot of towns. And those are there are probably people in those that have already been talking to the town and going to the meetings and can give you some information about that. We are actually going to start doing a monthly short-term rental newsletter that's really going to be kind of news, like what have we heard from different towns? Are there any new trends in the area or nationally that we think people should be aware of? Because we follow this, like I said, every time we have to show a house or we have to list a house, we have to find out what is going on in that town. So we have this sort of hive mind document that's kind of tries to keep abreast of things that are going on, from things we're hearing from clients way before it's gotten to even a, draft law stage. So, but I think what I would say is that, if you are in a town where it is going to be regulated and you don't get a permit, your options are to rent things out for 30 plus days at a time. That's usually that is the definition of, short-term versus long-term rentals. But I don't see a lot of changing the minds of those towns. I think that there will be, someone just actually asked, didn't Roxbury enact laws or limits and then drop them? Actually, Hillary, you would know that. Maybe?
I don't know if Roxbury did. Currently, I don't know of any law there. I just had clients by there. Wyndham, that happened. They proposed laws in Wyndham, just pretty nearby, and those got, like, people spoke up against them and they got completely thrown out, which doesn't mean they won't do it again in the future, but that has happened places.
Yeah, and somebody just wrote, is someone looking for a property? Are there particular towns that I should definitely avoid or zero in on based on STR regulations? So this is where I would say, and if somebody on our team could just put our buyer agent link into the chat, and I don't even know if you could, like, Scott or Hillary, if you could, like, if that could be even pinned, that would be great. But whatever, you just go to Upstate Curious, go to the buyer section. There's a questionnaire to work with the buyer's agent. The thing that's a little bit weird about that when we're answering it is that, like, I don't know if it's better to go with a town that has no regulations, but might, is like total Wild West, or if it's better to go with a town that has some regulations that you can kind of understand. And that's probably a conversation you have to have with your agent. to see like where things are at. And it's so specific. It's honestly super specific. And the other thing that's specific is that some towns will allow the existing permit to be transferred and some of them won't. Most of them won't. So even if you're buying something and someone's like, this has been a great Airbnb, it's like, that does not mean that it will be. And this is the one thing that if you can, if you hear anything on this call, just, you can hear that you should talk to the town directly. As agents, we know not to give advice on things like that. We can give you advice and we can say like, I heard this about this town. I heard this about this town, but you have to check with the town directly. That is like the actual, like we cannot, and no, any agent that tells you, you can definitely Airbnb this that's not what we're really supposed to do. We're supposed to be the source of the source. So we can be like, here, you might want to call this person in this town, or here, this is the law as I see it online. Check it out, see what your read of it is, and check with the town to see if there's any changes. So it's pretty subtle. I would say that there are I would guess that this is going to get more restrictive. And then the general sense is that it's probably going to get less restrictive eventually. And that actually the Supreme Court cases are getting, making their way up to the actual US Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, particularly with its current makeup, might actually just kind of say the towns can't do this. They can't, it's a form of taking, which is like kind of, like you can't like restrict my use of personal property without like giving me something in return, kind of. So I think that there's some sense that eventually this might get a lot less restrictive again, because they won't be able to do it. So this is all, we're all in this hilarious thing together. Yeah, there is some Ulster County wide discussion about regulations, and I don't know if it can supersede town regulations. That's the other thing. I think that's something that nobody actually knows. So I don't think that it could, but what I will say now is that Ulster County, the county is a number of ways that they're telling the towns to regulate these things, short-term rentals, explicitly. So that is a way that the county is already kind of impacting things. So I would say that is that. On the plus side of things, I think that there are some, so if you're like, meh, this sounds stressful, I want to sell my house, or you're still like, oh, I want to buy a house and do short-term rentals. It's a weird market right now, but it's like kind of oddly still pretty good for buyers and sellers. Buyers have so much less competition than they did before. There's very, very, very little inventory. So you'll have to like really look with a fine-tooth comb. And this is why, our team has a channel on our internal Slack message boards about, houses that we should sell. We have everybody on our team constantly looking for good houses. In addition to looking for good listings, if you want to sell a place now, I think that, because there's so little inventory, and this is the bummer news for buyers, the houses that are really well designed and really awesome are still having multiple offers and often selling above ask. But if your house has any issues, it's on a road, it needs a lot of work, I don't know, there's some like weird noise or something, the house will be, you won't get the same frenzy for sure that you would have gotten a couple of years ago. I feel like there's something else I wanted to say about that. So anyways, everybody says don't try and time the market for buying and selling. So if a short-term, and I did want to mention one other thing, which is this book, which came out really recently, Real Estate by the Numbers. If you guys, I don't know if you know Bigger Pockets, but it's a website, and here you go, Real Estate by the Numbers by Dave Meyer and Jay Scott. Bigger Pockets has tons of resources for investing. And this book just came out. I pre-ordered it and is all kinds of fun and hilarity about how to calculate your cash on cash return and blah, 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 you know, so this is where like, I think that the main message here is just like buying and selling, you just have to kind of go back to normal sound economic principles. Like you can't just be like, I'm gonna buy any house and like a year later, it'll be worth 100% more if I put like a flower pot on the table. Like that's just not like the world we ever lived in. It was for a couple of years, and it's not the world we live in now. And same thing's true with short-term rentals. You can't just be like, I'm gonna get a short-term rental, make millions of dollars and call it a day. So with that, I want to actually bring on Leanna and Sarah so we can talk about, because I think that to me, the main thing that's going to be a change is that people are gonna, you know, here I'm asking to unmute you guys.
Thank you.
People are going to have to work a little harder, you know, to like, to rent their houses. So first of all, I guess, Leanna, do you want to give us your take on like what your approach to this is and what you're seeing? And then Sarah, maybe you guys can kind of riff on what you need to do to keep attracting people.
You go first. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, obviously there's a huge shift with just how many people are doing it now. You know, whether you have like some sort of attraction at your house, like a sauna or a hot tub, you know, I think there's certain things that you have to do to kind of bring people to your house. You know, for me, I renovate the houses that I Airbnb. So I buy them for cheap and they need a gut renovation. So like if one day I did have to sell, like I'm still going to make a profit off of it, you know, but in the meantime, you know, I do short-term rental for 3 houses and I'm working on a 4th now. You know, I think just figuring out what your priority is for short-term rental and like whether you are doing it to make a lot of money and have it be rented as much as possible, or if you're just looking to do it to like offset, you know, a little bit of costs and you spend the majority of your time up here on the weekends or a week at a time here and there. You know, but it's certainly a risk, you know, it's a risk with all the short-term rental regulations coming into place and every town's different. That's a risk that I take. And I think that's why I prefer to gut renovate a house, because I'll make a profit either way if I do decide to sell one day. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's a really interesting point. And I mean, I think that a couple of points. So first of all, I mean, Leanna and I spoke about this earlier today, and it's like she had a business in Brooklyn. Was it in Brooklyn or was it everywhere? I don't even know.
It was in Crown Heights, Brooklyn.
Crown Heights, business in Crown Heights. So she, you know, like managed to build a dog walking business that like where she ended up having a team and was able to put money aside and buy a super cheap house and then put the sweat equity in to renovate it herself. And I think then, you know, obviously eventually with a partner, Amy. So, you know, so this is like, this is the opposite of buying a turnkey, gorgeous home and then like trying to make a profit on it. And so this is like also where, but a lot of people can't do that. They don't have the skills or the interest or whatever it is. I think that what I would say, and this is where I think it segues also to summer, is that if you are someone who wants to come up here, enjoy a house, have long-term appreciation, have the other benefits of real estate, rent it out occasionally just because you feel like about like a house being empty a lot of the times, have that offset your costs. I think those people have the least amount of risk actually, both in terms of regulations and in terms of any shifts in the market, because they don't need to have 99% occupancy. And a lot of the regulations that are coming are like, you can't rent for more than 180 days, you know? So that is a lot less risky to me than buying a house that has to make a certain amount of money. And if you buy the house, it's just numbers. So just calculate it now at like 55% occupancy instead of 80% occupancy. See what it looks like when you underwrite it that way. So, Sarah, you wanna jump in and just tell us what summer is first, because it's
So
I hear how you describe it.
Everyone is afraid to buy. You can always try, and that's our gradual ownership model. And kind of what makes summer different is that you can actually come to us. and you can be a member of Summer, and you choose a home. We purchase it with you. We don't do a full gut renovations, but we do kind of highlight pieces of the home that we think will enhance the short-term rental opportunities, like kitchens, bathrooms, things that we think really matter to the guests. And we take a big portion of that capital investment on us at the beginning. And so how we kind of get paid back for that is we do like a higher take rate of the management fee. And then we hope that you love us and we manage your home so great that like when you're ready to buy it back from us, that you continue to manage with us long term. And so Summer definitely has a little bit of a model that de-risks this business because our members are staying at our properties and they intend to. And they also are part of a network where other members are in the area that also stay at their properties when they want to try something new. So it taps into a little bit of a different market than just, Airbnb or VRBO and your typical, OTA partners that you would have. So it is really interesting. I also wanted to notate that there's a very small percentage of like Airbnb super hosts, and that really does have this magic effect on revenue. And so like, I know a lot of people are saying that, we're not seeing the uptick in occupancy that we usually do around this time of year, and there's more inventory in the market. All of those things are probably very true, but you can help yourself just by actually showing up more in like search engines and things like that, really by focusing on the guest experience. And I've worked at 3 short-term rental companies now. And so it's in many, many markets, and it's true in all of those markets that you do have a very large uptick in your revenue performance if you do capture and maintain that superhost status.
And I'm going to say that maintaining that superhost status on your own is nerve-wracking. Oh, it says that link for Go Summer didn't work. I was trying to.
Oh, it's just gosummer.com.
Oh, I tried to not have this like weird link that I got when I just like Googled it. There we go.
There you go.
The model for Go Summer is like, takes a second to like understand, but this is why also they're partnering with us as real estate agents here. So we can we just like do the normal thing of finding houses, and then Summer basically says, okay, this fits our model or doesn't fit our model. And so then you can either try it or buy it. They renovate it. They furnish it beautifully. That gets all rolled into the cost, and then we'll do the property management of it. I think that one of the things that a lot of people, how do I put it? You live in fear of losing that superhost status. Like I will tell you once you get it, because bad reviews are horrible in so many, they just are so damaging in terms of your overall performance. And you can get a bad review because, I don't know, there was like a hair on the counter or something. And someone's like, this house is disgusting. And I have been renting, we rented this place for 2 years while we were gone. We've rented the other place. I've, rented to hundreds of people, and overall I've had an overwhelmingly incredibly positive experience and gotten great reviews and been able to maintain superhost status. But it takes a lot of work. It just does. Like we get good reviews because if someone says the walkway isn't shoveled, your plow guy didn't show up, then we go and figure out how to do it. Leanna's about to head somewhere and do the cleaning for today because her cleaning person isn't doing it. Like you have to be okay doing that stuff, or paying a management company like Summer, to take that on. So this is where, a lot of, I would say that when we've heard the general rates for property management companies can be, 25% of the gross income, plus they usually keep the cleaning fee and then have hourly rates for other things. That does not include property management generally. Like you still have to have someone to, I don't know, if you need your roof fixed or something, that your short-term rental management company is not going to necessarily be there vetting contractors and then overseeing the work. And so if you are going to pay that much money, and I think the Go Summer model is different, but is similar in that you accept a lot less income to be able to participate in this, then, that's a straight trade-off, money, time, stress. You know what I mean? It just is. I think Summer, and the part that you guys might not have understood when Sarah was saying that, is that you can actually go to any of their properties. So you get a certain number of days. And that's why you do have a chance of having a higher occupancy, because someone who owns a home with Summer in Palm Springs or somewhere, or Joshua Tree, maybe like, oh, I want to check out the Hudson Valley. I'm going to use 6 of my like 60 allocated days this year in the Hudson Valley. And then I'm going to spend 20 days in my own house and then bop around for the other ones, which I think is I do have to say is a really interesting model.
Yeah, and the whole time we're opening up the curtain, right? So that you can see exactly how we're managing your property, and the best way to maintain the superhost status, the best ways that we are, generating revenue on the property, and really giving you kind of like education, so that when you do buy back your home from us, you know that you're making a good investment. And at the whole time that you're a member, a portion of your membership fees are going towards your home purchase. And so you really are gaining wealth on something that you would already be doing. You're already traveling, you're already coming to upstate. And so if you are kind of feeling queasy about it, this is a really good, like, stick your toe in the water, but don't dive in completely yet. But we'll get you to dive in at the end.
Here, Sarah, we have a question for you. Well, actually, there was one question first that I wanted to address about, like, if we know the consequences of renting without a permit, and enforcement and penalties. I would say that really differs from town to town, and that a huge percentage of people don't even know they're supposed to get permits in most of these towns and just don't. And I don't think a lot of the towns do have enforcement capabilities. And they are hiring companies that are specifically set up to find them. Some of them are. So I'm not like encouraging anyone to do anything like really wildly rogue, but I just really feel like a lot of people don't even know that this is happening. I know that a lot of people don't know this is happening. So those people do not have permits per se, because they don't even know it's happening. But Sarah, what would you say, how have you found occupancy rates to change in the last 2, and bookings for the last 2 months and bookings for future 2 months in the Catskills?
Yeah,
how many do you guys have in the Catskills now? I know there's a bunch underway, but
we have 10 in the Catskills area. And we have a few coming in the pipeline right now too. So it's great. We're definitely growing in the area. I actually was going to say December was very good for us. November was just like a little bit of a slump month, for sure. But December has definitely picked up, and then we're already seeing pretty healthy like occupancies on the books already for January and February. I think like snow helps with that, right? And like your positioning to the mountains and everything like that. But definitely we're seeing that it's a little bit of an uptick. I also saw a question about if you own a home, we have a bring your own home option. So you could definitely do that and just like reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you if you already have a house.
And then the question, how do the 35 days affect seasonal profitability? If like, a ski property in Hunter is 2 to 5 times as profitable during ski season versus slower ski.
Definitely. Yeah.
How does that work? So if you get a certain number of days, or is it a certain amount of money that you can spend at the properties when you're a summer member, or is it?
Exactly. So they actually they have like a amount based on their subscription amount that they agree upon at the time that they become a member. We basically say, okay, we think this is going to be the ADR at this property. And then we like max that out for the amount
Annual
of days.
daily rate.
Yep.
ADR.
Yes. And so based on that, they can utilize it during peak season, but they're paying peak rates, right? So we also try to help you understand like, hey, you're staying when everyone wants to stay. So you're using up all of your subscription, and you'll be blocking yourself from making more revenue in the future. So we obviously want you to do whatever you want to do in your home, but we'll definitely point it out nicely, just so that you understand and you're kind of getting more educated about the business.
And do you guys change, actually, maybe this is true for, I'll ask this to Deanna too. Do you change the photos seasonally?
We're taking winter photos right now. So we've only been in the market since like right before.
You should have gotten Phil out there, Scott. God damn it. A photographer.
Yeah. No, please. We're always open for more. We've got a really good partner, but he's one person. So, but yes, we're definitely taking, I think seasonal photos are huge for people to be able to put themselves there, and really see like the time of year that they're going to be at the property.
We also are going to put up, we have partnered with some very like social media influencer types, particularly Dirt and Glass, Chris Daniele, who's phenomenal. And so we have some photos that we're going to put up for our place that are winter photos, and then kind of change them sometime around March or whatever. Someone's asked if, we're going to have a whole we are definitely going to have a whole go summer and this is really making me see that we have to, a whole Go Summer session too. So if Sarah can't answer some of these questions, we'll have other people on too. But if you decide to purchase the home back, what are the property management rates if you decide to stay with Go Summer for property management? And what does it include?
Absolutely. So we're definitely like a full, stack property manager. So you're not going to have to do anything at your property. And the rate obviously would vary just depending on if we decided to put in more capital investment with you at the beginning. You might have a longer, higher rate than if, like, let's say you wanted to put in a pool, but you don't have the funds to do it, right? We can work out a deal with you where you would like pay us back at the end. So that definitely varies. And obviously we don't have any members that are there yet. We've been in business for a little bit. We're just about at a year. And so we don't have any members that are there yet, but a lot of our members are opting to put in like more capital on the front end. And then we have like the higher take rate at the end. And then we also have Ariel on. I don't know if you can unmute her, but she's our head of sales. So she would also be able to speak to that, but we don't want to make this a whole Go Summer call, but we're happy to.
I can't find her.
Yeah, I would say she might be.
But we have, okay, somebody else asked about Plum Guide. If anyone's managed to get their place on Plum Guide, somebody writes that they did get it on Plum Guide before COVID, but had almost no bookings with them. So I think the general gist though is that it doesn't hurt to get your place out there. I think there's going to be, I think the bear, like, I think it's just very similar to like listing houses, like for a minute into, 2021, you could like not even clean your house and put it on the market and get multiple offers, and now people are expecting you to like really do like the small fixes and have it like, at least somewhat nicely staged and whatever else. And the same is true for short-term rentals. Like, I think that and Summer does a great job. And I know that you guys work at least some in our area with a friend of mine who owns Long Weekend, and the design is like phenomenal. So, design is really important. Really important. And it doesn't have to be expensive. I just don't think it has to be. I mean, you guys do things at a much higher standard than I normally do, but like everything you see behind you is pretty much IKEA, and I think it looks pretty good, and nobody ever complained when we were renting our place, but we do have then like other artwork and plans and, things like that. I think that the bare minimum of like being able to reply to guests within like 5 nanoseconds of them reaching out is really important. But also now there are all different kind of things of like being able to offer, I don't know, like an in-home massage or a blah, 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 like not being a jerk about the checkout stuff. That is important to get people to come back to your place when they have other options,
Yeah,
So,
I would say, just Megan, to add to that, just the secret sauce of a short-term rental is they never have to talk to you, right? So if they have to reach out to you for anything, then we've failed on their stay. And so that's really what we focus on, is setting up the homes to be completely usable, just like you were at your own home. And we don't want a guest to have to ask us for olive oil or ask us for a serving tray or things like that they need when they're in the property, or have to go out and get it themselves. And so I think that's really a secret sauce for us. And we have all 5-star reviews at all of our properties, and it really is, if you read our commentary, it's really the guests saying the houses are set up at everything that you need, right? And I think that that's really important. Design captures them for the booking for sure, but like usability of the home, and then amenities, like when they're in the property itself, really like takes it through to like them coming back and staying with you again and like wanting to book your house over and over again.
I think that is such a good point. And I will mention that we have also found ways to minimize our, to have a lot of kind of automated communications flows with guests, so that so it's kind of the same thing. So before they, 7 days before they check in, they get this email, 2 days before they check in, they get this email, and half an hour after they check in, they get, so it's like, or text messages, so that it's there, so that it's not, it is kind of like preemptive strikes in terms of communications. And I will say that having homes in this area, like there are snowstorms, vendors don't show up, like pipes will burst, nature will get into your house in some capacity and freak out your guests. So it's like stuff does, but yeah, I think that like if you can only get a call when a bear has thrown trash everywhere, that's great, you know, and, or like, even that, it's like, great, bear throws trash everywhere 6 times, then you have different policy for how you deal with your trash, you know, and kind of constantly learning from it. So I think, you know, as an overall, I think that overall, what I would say is that there are some challenges. The regulations are kind of the hardest ones, because they're just so black and white for the time that they're happening, you know, and I mean, unless you want to go gray, you know, somebody kind of asked here. So, but it's like, either you're allowed to or you're not allowed to, and wherever you are with your particular house. But I think there's so much you can do to improve the experience, to improve the design, to make sure that they know all the great places around. And then if they have a problem, to be available immediately. And I don't think everybody, you know, and again, either like, if you don't have time to do this, then for sure, get a property manager, you know, work with, like, go somewhere, work with somebody else. Like, this is not for the faint of heart, either setting it up or doing it. It's a lot of learning and a lot of experience, I think. So I don't know, does anybody have any other questions? Any last thoughts? Do you guys feel overall, you know, pretty good, depressed, happy? I feel pretty good. So that's all that, no, that's not all that matters. But I'm, like I said, we're going to be having a monthly email about this stuff, and we'll be having more discussions. And we will also shortly have short-term rental properties on our main Upstate Curious website for booking. So the ones that we own, and then like Leanna's, and it's going to be a service that we offer to all clients. So anybody who bought their home through us will be able to, we're happy to like post their short-term rental there. Is just another way to get some more eyeballs on it. So we want to like help our clients as much as possible. And if anybody wants to sell their homes and it's a cute short-term rental, you let us know. We are ready and happy to do that too. But yeah, I think that Leanna and I mean, again, we could have a whole different discussion on this. Leanna and me have like the exact opposite approaches to doing this stuff. Like we've always hired contractors and been more hands-off, or we're kind of actually at the 3 spectrum here. So it's like Summer would be fully fully hands-off if you go as Summer. I do, I've done all the like marketing and advertising for them and all the client stuff and setting up the homes, but have not done the renovations like ourselves. Leanna has like found incredible deals and then bled out of her eyeballs to make them look amazing and to maintain them. So, and with all aspects of that. So I think, there's room in this for everybody. It just absolutely depends on your goals. So if nobody has any other questions, I think we're good. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Leanna. Thank you, everyone from Upstate Curious team also for being here. And yeah, it sounds like we do have to schedule more of these. Seems like I'm pretty sure. So thanks all.
Again. Bye, guys.
Bye.